Welcome to Class Time, your daily classroom for CSEC and CAPE subjects. It's now time for CSEC English language. I am Ardeen Virtue, and before I get into today's objectives, let me ask you students, how are you doing? Because I am not doing so well, and I am sensing through the screen that you are stressed. Mother is stressed, dad is stressed, my baby brother is stressed, my sister, everybody is stressed. And you're having a chicken little moment. The sky is falling and I cannot be bothered. Okay, keep calm. Don't panic. Let us say the Lion King mantra, Hakuna Matata. I know that it's trying times and you have challenges left, right, and center. But guess what? God is good, oh. Let me use my African intonation to send you some energy through the TV screen now. You woke up this morning now, you can see and you can walk around and you had some tea to drink. Or you may have gotten a full breakfast. Give God thanks. It could have been so much worse. So guess what? Let us collaborate and problem solve. Huh? Don't reside in frustration, man. You can do it. Now, I am very happy that I am here with you today so we can look at our lesson topic, which is setting. So you know what's the focus? Of course, story writing. All right. Let us look at today's objectives. The first one is we want to organize and sequence ideas to communicate emotional and imaginative interpretations of experience. We also seek to recognize the various literary devices and their contribution to meaning and demonstrate an ability to interpret at various levels, that are used in creative works. And finally, we want to practice how to use language, to create tone, mood, register, code, and style appropriate to particular situations. And these objectives were, of course, taken from the CSEC syllabus. So in a nutshell, we are going to focus on how to develop the setting of a story to ensure that it appeals to your readers. The setting should be related to other elements of the plot. And you should also create mood, draw your readers in, all right? Now, a very important point to note. CXC marks as part of content and relevance of the story, the storyline, plot, and action structure, which includes special focus on the development of setting. Therefore, bear in mind that the examiner will determine if the setting is established to clearly indicate where and when the action takes place. All right? Now, before we delve into the content of the lesson, I am going to do an introductory activity. And I want for you to watch the role play. I'm just going to do one since I had to give you a little pep talk at the start of the class. So instead of two, I am going to do a role play. And you're going to place this particular character in a setting. Where would you find this person? And who do you think this person is anyway? All right, so watch it carefully. Let's go. I man a walk on the breeze. Hey, I owe you. Sure. 10 grain bottles standing on the wall. 10 green bottles. Oh, life hard, boy. Hard in a butt. Me have company, J. Ray, in nephew, and the rest of family. Me good. And scene. All right. Who was this person? And in what context would you place him? Of course, I was dramatizing a man. I hope you picked that up. Where would you put this individual? All right? So you recognize it's a drunkard. Yes? I wonder if you automatically thought in the bar. Or did you come up with an out-of-the-box thinker? All right. What's the purpose of this? When you create your setting for your story, and you seek to situate your characters into the setting that you have created, Try not to cause your character to be so predictable in terms of where the person is, the actions that will take place in the context, etc. Give us another side, another perspective to this individual. So in my head, this individual is actually at a graveside. Why? Because he has lost his only child in an accident and he is struggling to come to terms with the loss. So you see, not all drunken men are drunken because they are just worthless and they are not catering to the demands that they need to in life. Another angle. All right. General tips for developing the setting for your story, and you should really bear these in mind. It is optional to begin with a description of setting in the exposition of the story. And you know that the exposition means that first part where you are introduced to setting, characters, etc. You may opt to start with an intense action or flashback. You can start a story with one word, run, and immediately you build intensity. So you don't necessarily have to spend 2, 3, 4 sentences describing a scene as the start of your story. Next tip, remember, the given word limit is 400 to 450 words. So while you may fuse vivid descriptions, you should not spend too much time on describing a scene or mood. Instead, you should, realize that you are writing a narrative piece that contains all the elements of plot, which is different from a descriptive essay. So do not commit the error of writing a descriptive essay instead of developing elements of plot. And a tactic to use is that you can intersperse elements of setting throughout the story while being brief. So instead of giving the full description in a paragraph, you can give us snippets throughout the story. All right? Another tip, the setting of the story should not seem disconnected from the other elements, but should clearly show a relationship with character, plot, conflict, and thematic development. So your setting should be used purposefully. Even though your teachers may teach you one element at a time, so you may have a lesson that focuses on setting, another element that focuses on characterization. It does not mean that when you write your story, they are going to be disconnected or disjointed. Everything should be interconnected in your story. So we see the relationship or the impact that one element has on the other. And very important, show, do not tell. Yes? So apart from employing strong verbs, adverbs, and descriptive words, you can fuse figurative language to give your expressions layers of meaning. Let your voice be an interesting voice in your story. All right. And pay attention to this one, too. Avoid weak and redundant expressions. For example, please do not start your story with once upon a time. We teachers want to tear our hair out when we see this. Once upon a time, that's all you've got? No. But I know you're creative students. You won't do that. And do not start with, it was a bright sunny day. Snooze. Oh, wake me up. Boring. Come on now. So, by the time we are finished with this lesson today, we are going to see how we can manipulate language to design creative expressions. So our readers become captivated. And when the CSEC examiner takes up your paper, they're like, yes, this belongs in the sophisticated category of stories. Boom! You feeling me? Yes, man. People in Spalding, Clarendon, I know you love to sleep. Please get out of the bed and pay attention to this lesson. Now, before we get into the activities, what are the elements of setting? And I know your brain is turning now because you do remember. So briefly, when we think of setting, we contemplate the time, when the story takes place. The clock time, if it is set in the past, in the present, is the action happening in the future? Or is there a mention of a season? You know, if it's winter or a season of life, you're going through a struggle, but you're anticipating another season in your existence. Is it giving information about time of day, the year, the socio-cultural period? You know, is it in history? Are we looking at a time when, you know, racism was at its peak? Like, no, my God. What is the era? All right? So all of those elements help to craft the time of the story. Then we also give consideration to the place, you know, maybe set in a particular geographical location or a specific place such as at school, at home, in the wilderness, in a haunted house, on the beach side, in a train crash. Is it action taking place inside or is it taking place outside? We also think of mood. And we all know that mood means the feelings or emotional state of the characters. How does the place, for example, impact the emotional responses of the character? And finally, we think of atmosphere, weather conditions, you know. It's a bright sunny day, yes, but we don't have to say it like that. So we think of if it's sunny, it's raining, what is happening? Are we going to use rain as, you know, pathetic fallacy because there is a character in the story who is experiencing a despondent time and we want to compare what is happening on the outside with what is happening on the inside of the character? Feeling that technique? Yes, man. All right. Now, your first task, or is it your second? You are going to identify the elements of setting in the following extract. So I have an extract for you. I want you to pay attention to it carefully and identify the elements of setting. After you have identified the elements, we will transition into analyzing how these elements of setting are created effectively in the extract. I will read the extract for you. The heavy raindrops that pelted against our galvanized roof evoked a groan and an extended sigh. I slowly forced my eyes open because I wanted to delay my having to confront a harsh reality. I snuggled tightly into my thin sheets because the draught from the rain escaped through the crevices of the board walls. As my eyes surveyed the room, they lingered on an application form I carefully placed in a plastic folder to prevent it from any unforeseen leaks, which sometimes happened when it rained. Today, my heart was set on two things: praying and doing well on a scholarship exam for which Miss Blake recommended me. I knew I had to do well because gaining the award was my ticket into a secure future. I abandoned my bed while managing not to awake my two younger sisters who were still deep in sleep. Though the cold floors numbed my feet, the warmth in my heart and determination fueled my steps. Could you imagine this scene? I hope so. All right, now, try to identify the elements. What is the time? What's the place? What is the mood, or what are the moods that you have detected? Atmosphere? And tell me, did you get any access into the social setting? Yes, man, I'm hearing you bright students down there. Yes. All right, one at a time. Remember I said I do not accept chorus answers. I'm feeling your passion. All right, keep calm. One at a time now. So, time. In the morning, we get that the character is just waking up. Good. Place, where is the action happening? At home, but more specifically where? Bedroom. Good. Mood or moods. We could sense determination and hope. All right, but did the story start with on that kind of note? Was it that the first note, the first mood, I should say? Think about that. We're going to look at that later on in the lesson. Atmosphere, it's raining outside and it's cold. And the social setting. Character is from we could say a lower stratum of society, right? Because we get an idea of the poverty You know, the draft coming through the cracked walls, the character is sharing a room with two other siblings, etc. All right? Now, we are going to see how this writer manipulated the use of figurative language to color the story and add layers of meaning to make the setting more interesting. So, one of the techniques that you can use, of course, is to fuse imagery into your story. And we know that there are different types of images, right? What are the different types of images? Do you remember them? All right. Yes, Saint Anne, I hear you. Visual image. Clarendon, what about you? Auditory image, excellent. Kingston, St. Andrew, what's your response? Tactile, brilliant. Touch, right? St. Catherine, what about you? Kinesthetic means movement, all right? What else is there? St. Thomas, did you pick up any, or do you remember any other image? We have olfactory, and which sense is that? Scent, all right, and there's another one. Which one is left out? Manchester. All right. Gustatory, taste. Y'all are doing so well. I'm so proud of you right now. All right. Now let us see which of these images were used in the story, in the extract of the story. We have auditory image. For example, the heavy raindrops pelted against our galvanized roof. The heavy raindrops that pelted against our galvanized roof evoked a groan and an extended sigh. All right. Now, immediately, we get the idea that the narrator is not in the best of mood. She doesn't feel inspired, right? For some people, raindrops pelting against a roof is very calming, but that's not the mood that is being created here. And we also have visual image. We can see the crevices in the wall, the application letter that is spoken about, and we see the sisters sleeping. So all of these images combined give us an idea of how the place looks, what is the condition, etc. We also have tactile image. I snuggled tightly into my thin sheets because the draft from the rain escaped through the crevices of the board walls. We get movement. You know, she's pulling her covers tighter because it's cold. And then we have the narrator getting out of bed, feeling the coldness of the floor, and we get that her steps were fueled. So we get the impression of her walking, or we can see it. Kinesthetic image, like I said, we get movement, all right? And there is also a metaphor. Gaining the award was my ticket into a secure future. So which two things are being compared in this example? Award and ticket, you know, being successful in the scholarship exam, and ticket that we associate with a journey, moving from one place to the next, a vehicle that transports you. So winning the scholarship would transport her to a different type of life, a secure future where she is more comfortable, where she can afford comfort. Good? And then we have the warmth in my heart and determination fueled my steps. What two things are being compared in this metaphor? All right, so the warmth that she feels, the motivation and the determination are being compared to what? Gas, petroleum, fuel. It propels her forward. She's inspired. She wants to achieve a goal. Now, when you write your setting or you decide to focus on time, place, mood, atmosphere, you do not have to rely on literal language. As a matter of fact, you should not only rely on literal language. You should allow your readers to become absorbed into your story, and you give them the opportunity to infer interpretations so that your readers can become actively involved and they can be pulled in through your expressions. I hope you're following. And there's another technique, the use of contrast. And what you will realize is that these expressions are loaded. Within a particular example, you can identify more than one figurative example. So contrast we get in I slowly forced my eyes open because I wanted to delay my having to confront a harsh reality. I snuggled tightly in my thin sheets because the draft from the rain escaped through the crevices of the board, of the walls. And we have this image being contrasted with, I abandoned my bed. So at one point, she didn't want to get up, but at the next, she's up, she's out of bed. And do you notice the economical use of expression? Instead of saying, she decided to get out of bed. So many words. Remember, you have 400 to 450 words. So it is very important for you to use precise language well so that you can shorten, right, your expressions. So instead of saying, she decided to get out of bed, I abandoned my bed. And we get the sense of the relationship that she feels with this bed. It's a space of comfort for her, in a sense, but she had to leave it. Yes? We have another example of contrast. Though the cold floors numbed my feet, the warmth in my heart and determination fueled my steps. And remember, we identify this same example as an example of kinesthetic energy, and it could also be tactile because we are feeling, we're touching the floors. So the coldness, and then this coldness somewhat becomes symbolic, the hardship, contrasted with the warmth that she feels, the determination that she feels. In spite of her living in this scene, living in this setting, in spite of her being a part of this social class, you know, she has the wherewithal, the energy, the passion to achieve something greater. And there we have the contrast. Now let's talk about effectiveness of the figurative language. Why is it that we should even bother ourselves to fuse figurative language when I can just state what I want to state on the surface? Come on now. Remember that the examiners will be marking you specifically for use of language. And if you're stuck at grade 1 language is to and are, and some grade 1 students are much more brilliant than that, then you know that your story will not be considered sophisticated. Your language has to be colorful. It has to have depth. All right. So let's look at how the figurative language functioned to create an interesting setting. So the writer employs imagery to show the reader, not tell. For example, instead of the narrator stating the girl is poor, the imagery is used to describe her room, which allows us access to her socioeconomic status. And another point, the examples of figurative language, such as contrast, add, like I've been saying, depth of meaning and interest to the narration. So we have the contrast again. Instead of saying she was cold and weary and she was uninspired and so on, and suddenly she had energy. Realize how it is expressed. Cold floors numbed her feet, but in spite of this numbness, she found enough energy to propel herself to get out of bed and aiming to achieve that scholarship. All right? Now it's practice time. I don't know how many of you were thinking that you are going to come to my class and not have something to do. Application time, yes. What I want you to do is, in one sentence, you're going to use figurative language to convey a truck driver who feels happy with being at work. So we are going to situate this truck driver at work, wherever work is. The visual you see on the screen is just an inspiration. You don't have to capture everything in it. It's supposed to stimulate your creativity and your thought process. So we have the truck driver, and what is he doing? He's skipping. All right. Now I give you a few seconds to write your sentence. Figurative language that helps us to realize how this truck driver is impacted by his work situation, his setting. I hear the brains working. Saint Elizabeth, please put the melon down and focus. I'm seeing you. Write your sentence. 5 seconds, and then we discuss. All right. Yes. Now, what did you come up with? I hope they are interesting, you know. As a matter of fact, go on the comments page and type in some of your responses. Yes, man, those of you who are watching on YouTube and elsewhere, go and type your responses. When class is over, I'll be checking your work. And make sure your expressions are interesting. Okay. Instead of saying, being at work makes Patrick feel like he wanted, or made Patrick feel like he wanted to skip, you could give a more interesting expression, such as the one below. I mean, being at work made Patrick feel as if he wanted to skip. Really? No. Huh? All right. A more interesting one. The thunderous sound of the mechanical beast. Boom! I love it already. Yes! Okay, I'm calming down right now. Let's go again. The thunderous sound of the mechanical beast created a flurry of satisfying emotions as it conjured memories of Patrick's childhood love for trucks. Tell me what you think, man. You like this one? I'm sure you do. So I did not include anything about the man skipping, yes? But it stimulated, you know, thoughts of childhood. Now let's pull this one apart and see what kind of experience we would want your readers to have as they read this expression. Thunderous sound. Which image? Auditory. So we hear the truck roaring. Mechanical beast. Instead of saying truck, truck, truck. Yeah? Metaphor. Mechanical beast. It's big. It's, you know, massive. It's monstrous on the road. Frightens some people. But for Patrick, it created a flurry of emotion. So we get the lightness, the happiness, yes, out of the skipping and through this expression. And when we think about flurry, you know, snow comes to mind, lightly falling, right? Yes, and you want your readers to feel this kind of response that Patrick has towards truck and his job. All right. Now let us move on to looking at mood. And what is mood? What did I say mood is? Do you remember? Okay. Yes, Hanover, I hear you loud and clear. Emotional state or responses of the character. Great. Now, the extract that I shared, we determined the mood, right? The mood changed from one of depression, unhappiness, to inspiration and determination. So we got the idea that she wasn't so thrilled, you know, I'm not liking where I'm living. I just want to stay in bed. But then she gave consideration to a promising future. And the vehicle to get there is to do well on the scholarship exam. Right? We got all of that. Now, time for you to practice. In one sentence, use figurative language to convey a character who feels a sense of calmness in the garden. And I chose happy feelings this morning because I know that some of you are not feeling so thrilled about all of this, being stuck at home and you want to go back to face-to-face class and all of that. So breathe, inhale and exhale, and write one sentence that conveys calmness. All right. And as you write, do not, for example, write that the garden made Susan calm. Don't write that. Remember to show your readers. Paint a picture. Don't tell them. All right. Yes. Good. All right. Now, this is my example. And you can determine if your examples are much more interesting than mine. If yours have layers of meaning more than mine. I know you are excellent writers. Now, let's look at mine. Susan stared at the richly purpled lilies, whose fragrance tranquilized her to the point she forgot about her worries. Susan stared at the richly purpled lilies. So we get the idea of her being transfixed. Whose fragrance tranquilized her. Now, what kind of figurative language is this? It's metaphorical, yes? comparing the effect of the lilies to you're getting an injection. Keeping you calm. She was tranquilized by the fragrance. And what is her response? Or what happens next? She forgets about all her worries. So we see the impact of the setting on this character. And I know you have your own style of writing. Now remember I said that when you seek to develop your setting in your story, your setting should not be disconnected from the other elements of plot. And we're going to look at how that is achieved in the extract I shared. So setting and characterization. We know that characterization is concerned with how a writer uses different methods to portray characters. So we learn about characters through their actions, what they say, what people think about them, etc. In this story, we have to rely on interpreting the character through behavior. So what about the setting impacts the behavior of the character? So because the narrator is from a poor background, you know, she's motivated to achieve. So her setting, her home becomes the catalyst for her goal to achieve. And we also look at setting and conflict. And what is a conflict? Excellent. We know that conflict is a disagreement, a struggle. And there are different types of conflicts. What are they? All right, good. We have the internal conflict, that is character against self, you know, having a decision to make, or you have struggling emotionally. We have man versus man, or character against character, two individuals in a fight or disagreement. We also have society against an individual, or a group against an individual. Yes? And we also have character against nature. Yes? Elements of nature could become the antagonist in a story. All right. Boy, you're all so bright. Your teachers are proud of you. Now let's take a look at how setting is interwoven to help to convey conflict in the setting that I shared, in the extract I shared. So first of all, we realize, like I said, the symbolism of the cold and warmth mentioned suggests a struggle between the character's hopes and dreams and her reality of living in poverty. So she is not very happy with her space, and she's seeking to overcome this existence in order to achieve something greater in life. Her space is one that is not immediately inspiring. However, she manages to conquer the feeling of feeling lackluster in a bid to invest effort into a promising future. So we get the struggle in the contrast that is given. All right? Therefore, what type of conflict is this? Yes, character against self. We realize that it's an emotional struggle, you know, feeling demotivated, uninspired. And that is struggling against? Yes, feeling energetic, purposeful, wanting to achieve a goal. And which emotion wins or seems like it will win in this story? All right, the positive one. Excellent. And I hope that as you pay attention to this, that you too become inspired. Because I know sometimes you do have your challenges. Let the better emotions win. All right? We are going to stop here for today. That's all the time we have for CSEC English language. Up next is Caribbean Studies. We'll be right back.
Reduce your risk of viral illnesses like the flu and coronavirus. Wash your hands frequently with soap and water. Cover your nose and mouth when coughing with a tissue and dispose of it. Avoid close contact with anyone with a cold or flu-like symptoms. If you become ill, please visit your doctor or the nearest health center and share